Kubernetes CKAD tips number 8. In this, we will talk about deployments. So deployments is a key object in Kubernetes. And we have seen so far that we directly have created pods. However, in the actual real production, we don't create pod directly. We rather create deployment. Deployment internally creates a pod. So it's sort of like a hierarchical object. You can think from that perspective. So let me try to draw something to give you some bit of understanding what exactly happens when you create a deployment. Now imagine that you have a Kubernetes cluster, right? And you are going to create a deployment. Now deployment definitely contains pod, and pod definitely contains uh, containers. So if you start from, let's say, container level, this is your container C, and then you have got your pod around that, right? That is your pod. And then you create the, let's say you create the deployment against that. Now, deployment can have multiple pods depending on, let's say, what is the low kind of design you want to prefer, right? So if you have pod 2 and then container 2, right? So this is actually the deployment, right? So here you can say how many replicas it requires. How many? What is the number of replicas you need, right? So if you say that I need 3 replica, then there'll be third pod created like this. So if you use this and I say that I want to create the third pod, and it will create a third pod. So what happens in the deployment is that if, let's say, due to some reason, one pod goes down, okay, one pod is no more available, then you basically do not need to do anything. So deployment keeps monitoring the whole thing and delete and recreate another pod. You can even have, let's say, an update pushed in a rolling format, which means that if you have, let's say, 3 replicas, it will not shut down all of them together. It will probably start rolling it out one by one, right? So that's a kind of rolling update, which is kind of default in the deployment. So deployment really makes a lot of sense in the production kind of scenario. So let's see how that looks like. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to get all, see what all is created. Okay, delete, deploy, and what is the deployment? My deploy, right? Just to make sure that we don't step into the unnecessary things. So get all will show you that k delete pod busy nginx. So we kind of deleted both the pods. Now we are kind of in a clean state where I'm going to first create a deployment, and then I will use that deployment to increase my capacity and observe like if there is anything happening at the stage. So let's create a simple deployment, k create. Now, where you have seen that in the Kubernetes, the kubectl run creates a pod. We do not have kubectl create pod as of now, but we don't need to use the run command. But for deployment, you use create. So you say create deploy, which is the short form of deployment. So you can either write deploy or deployment, and then you say that name nginx, right? So you can just give nginx dash deploy, and then you say image. What is that image? Is nginx image. And then here you can say replicas. If you say replicas 3, you will notice that it will create 3 pods. So if I now say k get pods, you will see there will be 3 pods running, right? Now, what I wanted to show you is that if I now remember this name 76095. This is a randomly given name. Now, if I let's say k delete pod, this is a pod, I can go ahead and delete it. So due to some reason, the machine is not working, the node is down, the pod is deleted. Let's say the pod is deleted. Okay. If that is the case, right, you notice the other two pods, right? 769C. If I now say get pods, you won't find the 769C, but you will see that there is a new one which got created, which is this one. Definitely, this is newer. You can see these two are 38 second and 39 seconds old, but the new one is 16-second old. So deployment keeps checking what is the current state of the pod. If any pod is malfunctioning, not working, etc., etc., it goes ahead and deletes that pod, right? Recreates that pod, right? So you don't need to really monitor the thing. Deployment will monitor. Not only that, when you have a deployment created with replicas, and you say k get all, it'll show you all the pods and the deployment, and there is a new object which is replica set which you haven't created, but the deployment has created because you mentioned that you need to have 3 replicas, right? So you can see that the number of replicas are showing 3. So if you say k edit deploy nginx, that will basically allow you to edit the replicas. So if you go inside that replica and let's say change it to 5, okay, instead of 3, I made it to 5 and come out. What happens if you say k get all, you'll find immediately 5 pod is ready, right? 2 of them are just 3 seconds older, and the replica set has got increased to 5. Right now, I kind of have increased the capacity. There will be a load balancer sitting on top of it. I don't have to really worry too much about it. So it's all configured by Kubernetes. It will make sure that I will be now able to handle more loads because there will be more users hitting my website, right, which is running in Nginx. So that's a kind of purpose for deployment. We don't control the pods. Deployment controls the pod. Hence, the name comes with some random values, right? If you see that now, if I say k get deploy nginx, and then I just say I want to see it in YAML, you will find that there is a specification available for this is the API version v1 kind deployment. And then if I want to go directly jump into the specs section, the spec says that now it has got a template, and that template contains the specification of the pod, right? So that's the specification of the pod, and then it has a container, right? And only one container, that is Nginx. And you can see in the deployment, it also talks about how many replicas it requires, right? So the number of replicas, etc., will be part of that deployment definition. We'll be working mostly around that little later, but you just notice here that replica shows 5, so you can easily identify that the 5 pod will be created no matter how you kill the pod. If you forcefully kill the pod, it'll still spin up a new one. So it'll make sure that it always have 5 pods up and running. Later point in time, we'll see how we can roll out the update and etc. and then check the various different things. So with this, I want to stop here and thank you for watching.